I'll see you guys in the dark.
I went to a regular school in my country where the classes ranges from grade 0 to grade 9. Pretty normal school. Low budgeted, but still okay. Kids from middle class families, as average as they can get. It wasn't usual for teachers to come and go. Our teacher had just quit, so we needed a substitute teacher for a week till they could find us another. The bell rings and we all sit down. This tall, big, bald man in his 30s walks in. He looked super serious. We all thought he was lost. He sits down at the desk and says, "You can all call me sir," in a very serious, loud, and firm tone. We were all like, "Dang, dude, fine," and proceeded to grab our books. We all got a weird vibe from him, so no one dared to speak or do a sudden move. A girl raised her hand and asked, "Sir, what's your name?" A simple, innocent, and fair question. This man stormed to her desk and pushed her up against the desk of the student behind her while she was still sitting. "My name is irrelevant," or something along those lines. She looked so mortified, and as he was walking back to his desk, and the girl was fixing herself and her seating, he said, "I do not want any stupid questions in this classroom." My memory is a bit foggy as this was like 10 years ago, but I recall him freaking out even more about other small things. But what sticks to my memory the most is when this happened. This girl in our class, most hard-working of all, got up and asked, "Sir, can I have permission to close the window?" Note, this was in mid-December. There was a heavy and thick snow outside, and she was sitting right by the window the teacher had opened at the time. I guess she thought she saw a nod, so she proceeded to get up to the table by the window and grab out for the window. As she is doing that, the teacher storms over to her, literally pushes her out, and closes the window. Luckily, we were on the ground floor, but she was in her socks and not wearing any jacket. She fell and got all wet and cold. A bunch of us got up to open a window to help her in, while others were screaming at him, but he pushed everyone away that wanted to let her in. So she had to run in her wet socks and generally wet clothes to the nearest entrance. When she got back in, he had a grin on his face and was like, "Oh, come on in. I was just playing around with you." After class, me and a few others stormed right to the principal's office and reported the dude. But the teacher had gotten there before us, so we went in, and the teacher and the principal were laughing and bonding with each other. So when we wanted to tell what happened, the teacher was like, "Kids and their stories, right?" And the principal just laughed at us. I never felt so freaking helpless. No one had taken us seriously. But this does have a happy ending. A few weeks later, we were all informed that he had gotten fired and was banned from teaching with kids. He was a former military dude that recently got home from being deported and needing something to do. He had a lot of issues that he never spoke about until they investigated our story. He had apparently been having deep anger issues and apparently attacked some people and almost harmed a kid. The police got involved, I think. I hope I never have to meet him again, or any kid for that matter, but I do hope he got the help he needed to not be a threat to society. In 7th grade, I had this really weird physics teacher. I didn't like him from the very beginning. He wasn't suited for the job at all, since he had a terrible short temper and a confusing way of explaining things. But other than him being a genuinely bad teacher, he was really fishy. He would always compliment the pretty and popular girls, say how nice their hair looked, and how great a certain color looked on them. Sometimes he would make comments about how short some girls' shorts were. I know that this is nothing too bizarre, but given that he was in his mid-50s when he taught our class, and that we were all around 12 to 13 years old, I find it a bit weird. It's also the way he said it. It wasn't a nice tone, it just made everyone feel really uncomfortable. I remember that one day he went behind this girl in the middle of class and started stroking and sniffing her hair, while saying stuff like, "You have really beautiful, thick hair. You must take really good care of it. It's so soft." He did this a couple of times. He doesn't teach in my school anymore. So creepy physics teacher, let's not ever meet. Ever again. My third grade teacher was a bully. A bully. I have no clue why she didn't like me, but she didn't. In fact, one would argue that she loathed me. She scared me, and for a good while nothing meant more to me than the approval of other adults. My go-to highlights from that school year is telling this story. Constantly put me in time out by sending me to the front corner of the classroom for everyone to stare at me. She never did this to any other students, at least never in my class. I could not remember why she did this, but I specifically remember being afraid of her and always trying to be on my best behavior to avoid this. It didn't matter though. Then, when I stand there for what felt like ever, missing the lesson and feeling the eyes on me, I'd give in and ask how long I had to stand there since she would never tell me. She'd just stop and direct all the attention to me and yelled loudly, "You're still standing there? If I were you, I would have gone and sat back down already. But then again, I'm smarter than you." It was so confusing. All I know now is that she did it to make me look or feel stupid. I was always participating in class growing up. I took pride in it, and it helped me learn the material. She purposely ignored me every single time I'd raise my hand. They'd give me bad marks about my participation to take home. For birthday, she would put a cutout balloon on the giant calendar by the door with your name written on it so everyone could see and wish you happy birthday when they walked in. On my birthday, I had no balloon. So one of my friends went to the teacher and told her, just in case she had forgotten. She then, very loudly so all the students could hear her, and while staring at me in the eyes, exclaimed, "I'm not wishing her a happy birthday because she didn't bring in another for the class." On the day before our class Christmas party before break, we were all making our paper stockings to hang up for students to put goodies in. She walked over and saw I had cut mine a bit skinnier than an average stocking, grabbed it, and held it in the air while loudly stating, "Look, class, looks like Jackie's only getting a pencil for Christmas. Cue her," and everyone laughed. One day during class, we were all reading. My friend sitting next to me whispered to ask what page we were on because she hadn't been paying any attention. All I did was tell her the page number quietly, and out of nowhere, I felt a hard smack on the back of my head. My teacher had smacked me, saying I was rude, disruptive, and disrespectful to the entire class. One day during lunchtime, some of the friends at my table were getting rowdy and throwing some food. Nothing huge, but enough for my teacher to notice. On the walk back to class, after sending a few of those involved to the principal, she asked the group if there was anyone else who had been seen or done anything about it. I raised my hand to tell her about the other little boy who was the ringleader of the whole incident, but instead of letting me speak, she refused to hear what I had to say and immediately sent me to the office. Then when the kids in trouble and I were in the principal's office, she openly lied to the principal to get me in trouble, stating that she saw me laughing and encouraging the kids who were throwing food. I was sitting on the other side of the table, not engaging in the slightest. I stayed quiet, and it hurt my heart looking back now that I did, because I remember feeling so damn small and defeated at that moment. There are more, but those stick with me the most. She was just so mean, so petty, always trying to humiliate me in some way, shape, or form. I was an 8-year-old, polite if not a bit of a goofball, but never meant any harm to anyone, never an active troublemaker, and I will never forget how awful she constantly made me feel. How she always made it her personal mission to have the class staring or laughing at me. How she belittled and bullied me all the time. The pleasure she took in embarrassing me and creating opportunities to embarrass me. A little kid. I don't know why I didn't say anything to my parents at the time. She just intimidated me pretty good, and I think seeing her lie to the principal and him believing her over me made me think the same would happen with my parents. I did tell them years after we moved and such, but I wish I'd told them sooner. Wherever you are, Miss Whitstone, screw you. Let's never, ever meet again. I was trying to pass the exams for the Fine Arts University, and in order to get in, which is extremely hard, you had to have some basic knowledge of drawing technique with charcoal and colors, as well as be good in composition and other stuff regarding your art. So in order to get good enough to pass, you essentially have to go to the drawing prep schools specifically created for these exams. Most of them, if not all, were too far away from my hometown, so my father thought to send me to a German artist who has done some commissions for him. Living in a small town away from our own, he was around 60 and really good at his work, but because the distance was still too big, I had to go and live at this town, and he would privately tutor me. We would have courses for 4 to 6 hours a day, every day at the house I was living. At first it all seemed well and good. But since I knew it was needed for the exams, I was asking him to focus on charcoal and composition. But instead, he was teaching me random things which were not relevant with my exams. These kinds of things need lots of materials, other than paint, like construction composition. He would leave to grab the materials on a regular basis, but when he would come back, I would notice that he was particularly drunk. Reeking of beer, I immediately realized that this was leading nowhere, and just wanted to try and persuade him to do what I was in need for my exams. At first everything seemed nice and normal except that the issues mentioned above. But as time started passing, I've started meeting people, and the other 2 friends I've made at the time noticed too that his car was moving in town, and that he was drinking in his parked car many times. At the time, I've just thought that it was something that I could poke my nose into, and silently try to let it slide. But gradually, he would become more intense, and he would drink and start telling me about his life, and touch my shoulders, and be too close to me physically when I was drawing. I was trying to keep a distance, and still talking to him in plural, but he would still lean closer and closer. At one point, my friends took notice of something really strange. Wherever I was going, his car would be parked just a few blocks away from where we were. Every single time, since it was a small town with only one main street at the beach, I've reassured them that this was just a coincidence. But then one night, I woke up from the barks of the 2 stray dogs that I have adopted while I was there. I woke up and went to check what was wrong, and I freaked when I saw his car parked across the street in front of my house. Since it was too dark, I couldn't see if he was there or not, but I certainly got freaked out about this. I tried to calm down by thinking that he was probably at one of the bars which were really close to my house. Note that the house I was living in was not on any floor, and that the enclosure of my small yard was more of a decoration rather than practical, and that the house was on a main road at the beach, but a little further away than the actual town. I've started being more alarmed about him, and he gradually started being more intimidating, because I have been a victim of harassment before, and my mother and stepdad accused me of being an attention whore, and didn't want to believe me, until I was sent to the hospital with grave wounds after a rough night. I've lost my faith and stopped relying on my family whenever something was happening. I have also to add that the police in my country take that issue way too lightly, and most of the time disregard them as women just trying to get some attention or overreacting. I could barely sleep. I was always sleeping in the living room so I could be with my dogs, and have better access to the front door's big window which was right next to it. After I've started checking out the window with my lights out so he couldn't see me, I realized that he was not there some nights. As I've started being more skeptical, I went through the back balcony, and in some fields, and his car was always parked in a really close range of my house, just not across from it anymore. I didn't know how to confront him about this whenever we had classes together. I have told the issues to my newly made friends, and sometimes would even pass out of the nights with the Marine cop just to feel safe. They all agreed that if anything happens, that I should call them, and they would be witnesses if the police ever manages to get involved. And then it came the night that this alcoholism and unstable mentality kicked in. I woke up to drink some water and saw him staring through my window. I freaking panicked and started yelling, "What the hell are you doing here? Get the hell out of my house!" I didn't open the door. No matter how much I yelled, he kept on staring at me and just seemed wasted. I called my neighbor cop, and when he saw me on the phone, he started banging on the window. I thought he would break in, and my friend came in time. He put him on the ground and told me that now we had the evidence of trespassing. Needless to say, I left after that. Fast forward about 1 year later, I came back for summer holidays with a female friend of mine, and of course, we went to living at that house. I also have to add that my teacher used to smoke a certain brand of cigarettes, Ladder, and that he always used a Zippo lighter. The next day of arrival, me and my friends went to the supermarket to fill the fridge. When we came back, as we took our shoes off on the couch, she looked at me and said, "Hey, did you put those cigarette butts there?" We only smoked tobacco, by the way, so I went and checked. And on the floor, they were there neatly. Put cigarette butts. Ladders, of course. I've told her what happened last year. We went into the room to change and froze in place. Someone has gone through our stuff. All my underwear were placed on the bed, and when I went to pick them up, there was semen on each and every one of them. In the wardrobe, there was a Zippo lighter placed in the middle of one of the shelves. I panicked and tried to call my cop friend, but he was transferred somewhere else. We most certainly have locked the house before leaving, so we checked the windows and balcony door. They were all locked. I recalled that my dad was given a spare key to one of my town's hotel owners. I was also friends with the owner's son who knew all about what happened last year. And I also recall what happened upon meeting between my dad, the teacher, and me. He mentioned that if I ever get locked out of the house, there was a spare key in the hotel. We went to the hotel and asked if anyone was there for the house's keys, and they told us that no one did. We regarded it as one of the windows being either unlocked or that I had forgotten the door as such. We tried to spend our vacation peacefully, and we kept on taking the car with my friends going on random beaches far away. Each day, if we were to follow us to take notice of him, we were also surrounded by other people. My friends even told me that the teacher was indeed an alcoholic and not pleasant to be around. None informed their parents, though, because gossip runs faster than the speed of light, and the truth is altered greatly in the process. The last night, my friend and I decided to spend a peaceful night together, just the two of us, watching movies on my laptop and cooking. We got drunk and passed out on the couches. The dogs were adopted by my friends when I left, and I woke up in the middle of the night because of a ticklish feeling. I was still wasted and dehydrated from all the drinking, and my head was just spinning. The guy was on top of me and was jerking off between my thighs. Upon realizing it, I panicked, but I didn't move, pretending my body was sliding off the couch so I would slip away. After a while, I found the opportunity and slipped through him and ran at the door, went out on the street and started yelling out for help until a car passing the road pulled over, and the couple in it came. When we went back home, no one was there, of course. Thankfully, my friend was unharmed, still sleeping, and blamed myself for leaving her there and started crying out of relief. Because of my father's prestige and out of fear that he would criticize me as my mom and stepdad did in the past, I never went to the police about it. Fast forward 2 years. I have passed the exams after going to an actual prep school, and my accident met one of my friends back in the day from that town. We were catching up with each other when he asked me, "So, how did the court go with the teacher?" I was dumbfounded, asking, "What court?" Apparently, my dad went to his house to chat with him and ask him for permission for his office. He had 2 bathrooms, one small and one big. My father was used to the small one for some reason, and while the teacher was making coffee, he helped himself with his needs. He opened the door, and there was nothing left of the bathroom. No sinks, no shower, nothing. Only paintings and sketchings of me, in a corner like a small altar. Many sketches were of me doing either everyday stuff or naked with sensual, erotic poses. He immediately went on and punched him, and then he called the police. My father has a great influence and power in certain areas, and he immediately tried to put him in jail. He realized what was probably the reason I've stopped the courses with him, and he has heard about the incident of that night during my vacation. Because of the couples that were locals in the area, he never asked me anything, let alone mentioned about what happened. Because all the cops were his friends, he tried to make sure he'd put him in jail, one way or another. It was the talk of the town. I felt relief and shame that I didn't rely on him due to my past experiences with relying on other family members. And I felt shame I've never tried to persuade this issue, since one day he would harm someone else if left alone. Moral of the story: rely on others, because at the end of the day, you could prevent the same things that happened to you, be a hellish experience for someone else. I was selfish and egocentric, only thinking the ifs of reactions, and did more bad than good.
If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, like, and hit the bell for notifications on future videos, and become a stalker of the night. And I'll see you next time.